avoid bad teachers. That's step number one. Step number two is equally important, and it concerns what you do in between lessons. Again, in my experience, there are two kinds of students. One kind need English for some reason, usually work, traveling, maybe they have someone in their family who is a foreigner and their only common language is English. So they have a very specific particular reason for learning. In other words, they actually use English. These people are almost always much more successful than people who just learn English to feel better. And there are a lot of people like that. They don't really use English, but they see it as going to the gym. They do it for the street cred because everyone else speaks English, so I have to speak English too. And those people almost always struggle. Almost always. Because it is something that is alien to them, and it remains alien. It's not theirs. So if you're one of these people, you don't really have a use for your English, you're just learning to feel better, then you need to find something. You need to find a way of using the language. I'll tell you why I am an English teacher. I'm an English teacher because English, and this is true for any foreign language, is something that you can learn by listening to music, watching TV, and playing video games. That's how I've learned my English. And I can tell you something about when I was a learner, a young learner, until about the age of 10, because I started learning English a long time ago, it's true. Until the age of 10, my mother would always sit down with me at the weekend and do vocabulary with me, drill words. And then when I went to grammar school, I think when I was 13, I became more independent. I started learning on my own. And at that point, I stopped learning English in terms of school. What do I mean by that? I went to the lessons, but I never studied at home. Never. I went to the lessons, to English lessons, to relax. Okay? And I never studied at home. But what I did almost every day, I listened to music. I was a big fan of Alice Cooper. Well, older ones among you maybe know who that is. And every day I came home and I listened to his songs for 2 hours. I knew them by heart. I still do. I still know most of them by heart. And at some point, I really wanted to know what he was singing about. So I just found the lyrics, I read them, and all of a sudden, a new understanding of the language opened up before me. And through learning these songs and really knowing them by heart, I was learning vocabulary, I was learning grammar, and everything else. I was practicing listening, pronunciation, many things I was able to learn just listening to music and knowing songs by heart. Because I firmly believe that learning a language is closer to learning a poem than to solving a mathematical problem through some rules and formulas. It's more about, in this situation, people say this. And you just have to go through those situations, experience them, or study those situations somehow to know what to say. That in my opinion, is what learning a language means. Anyway, so I was not a top student in my class. I always had B's, while all the conscientious students who studied from the textbooks, they had A's. But then at the end of grammar school, in Slovakia, where I'm from, there's always a big exam where you're supposed to demonstrate everything that you have learned in those 6 years. Normally, before this exam, you have a subject, for example, English, mathematics, history, philosophy, biology, whatever. It's very similar to a university exam. So you spend weeks, months learning. I didn't learn anything for my English exam. And I went there was a committee. There are always 3 people. Usually your teacher, your English teacher, who is like the main examiner, then an assistant examiner, and then someone from outside, an outside observer, who is actually the committee chairperson, you could say. And they are there to make sure that everything's on the up and up. They give you 20 papers and you draw one and there's a question on it and you have to speak for 15 minutes about this question. Well, what I got was the United States. I hadn't studied any of the questions, but I was studying for my history exam as well. And I was learning that in Slovak. And one of the history questions was the history of the United States. So I told them everything that I remembered about the history of the United States in English. And I remember that the outside observer, her mind was blown. She was like, how do you know this? She was quite impressed. So I got an A, and like she praised me in front of all the other students. I was really proud of myself that day. And it was just because, not because I had studied the questions, but just because I was able to speak. I was able to use the knowledge that I'd accumulated through listening to music. And you need to do something similar. You need to find something, an activity where English is not the goal, but a tool. It is a means to an end. And it can be anything from playing video games, listening to music. And I would recommend this for beginners and, say, pre-intermediate students. Because what most people do is they say, oh, I'm going to watch TV in English. Well, if you're pre-intermediate, good luck. What usually happens is that people don't understand it, and it's like the barking of a dog to them. And they don't get anything out of it, and it becomes a chore. It becomes unpleasant. So whenever you are deciding, okay, how am I going to use my English? What am I going to do? You need to find something that you can do with your level. So if you're a beginner, start with songs or some very simple videos. Now, on the internet, there are a million videos, and you can if you just type your level, English, video, beginner, you'll find a lot of content. Songs are really good, especially if you have like a favorite band or a favorite musician. You can listen to their songs. You can almost learn them by heart. That's what happens when we like a song. You can study the lyrics. You can check them out in your language, and then you will start seeing the connections automatically. If you have a general understanding of what they're singing about, and you know the lyrics, your brain will do the rest over time. And you will be surprised how well you will remember those things and how much you will learn from that. I can also recommend a website called BBC Learning English. You have different levels there. And if you're, for example, intermediate, upper intermediate, you can definitely check it out. There's a lot of content. They publish new videos every week. So you can study, you can use that. If you have a hobby, cooking, fishing, sports, motorbikes, find some YouTube channels that talk about this topic. Okay? Try to get as much information as you can from English speaking sources. So if I don't know what to cook, I can go online, I can go on YouTube, I can find a nice cooking show, I can watch it, and then I will pick things up over time. If you have kids, that's perfect. If you have kids and you're a beginner or your level is lower, you can study English with your children because you can play children's songs to them. And I don't have children, but I know that when kids like something, they like it a lot. And if they like a song, they want to listen to it all the time. So you will know the song as well as your child, okay? There are a lot of cartoons for children. Play those cartoons to them in English and watch those cartoons with them. That's a win-win situation. Your kids will be entertained, they'll be happy, you'll spend time with them, and you're all learning English together. All right. Now, if you're more advanced, you can slowly start experimenting, exposing yourself to authentic English. That means the news, maybe a sitcom here and there. But I would be really careful with the level. You simply have to find the right level of content. Otherwise, it will be boring, it will be unpleasant, and you will stop. Computer games. Amazing, an amazing tool for learning English. I remember when I was a primary school teacher, again, I had students who didn't study at home, but their English was great because they were gamers, right? And they were playing Counter-Strike with someone from China or from, I don't know, Africa. And again, English was their common tongue, so to speak. So again, their English was much better than most students, and they didn't really put much hard work into studying it. They learned it by doing it. All right, this is a very important step, and if you get it right, it will do wonders for your